Welcome. Well, I wanted to talk about the energy system of the body here. Looks like a little fuzz right there. The energy system of the human body. So we know we are made up of energy, and this has a lot to do with all of our being. I'm going to wait just a minute or two here for more people to join in. So our energy system courses all through our body and really is our body on a quantum level. If we look at the atoms that make up the matter that is our body, that matter is actually electricity. It's actually energy. So when we're talking about the energy of the body and the way that that energy structures and forms, we're really talking about us in a more real way, us in a more profound way, us in a more powerful way, us in a higher dimensional way, us in a grand overview sense, us in a more real scientific way. So when we're talking about our energy body and when we're talking about our chakras, these are really us much more than our physical body. Scientifically. So this is why it's so important and so valuable to have insightful knowledge on what our energy body is and how the chakras represent like the different musical notes of our being. And this is something that is most often overlooked. I have not seen this taught anywhere. This is something that I have had to learn independently and then verified with other people who have learned independently. This is kind of like the way life is and the way that life makes sense. We learn it by finding evidence of it, by seeing pictures of it and recognizing what those pictures mean, and reading things that have multiple meanings, and all of a sudden having clarity in what the meaning actually is in a much deeper way. So all of this tells us about the greater reality of our energy body, of our chakras, and we can use pure psychology to go through these. And so our first chakra is our identity, and this is, I'm sure that most people are familiar with this, but our first chakra is our connection with the earth. It's our connection with being here on this planet in this body. So it's really important to every single day have a ritual of some sort, either in our imagination or physically or meditation or whatever we're doing, visualization, where we go ahead and we connect in with the earth, and we might remind ourselves that we're in an earth body, and that's our first chakra, and we ground in with the earth. We can just imagine a stream of red energy traveling from the base of our torso into the earth, and it's fairly simple. And if we just do this, and we can use whatever visualizations come to us and whatever imagery comes to us is good, and just focus on really grounding all the excess charge into the earth and being connected to the earth, and reminding ourselves that this is our earth body and our connection with the earth here. And then we move up into our second chakra, and so our first chakra is our earth body. Our second chakra is our emotional body and our relation body and our connection body. This is our interpersonal body. This has to do with our relationship with ourselves, so how we feel about ourselves and what we think about ourselves and how we are with ourselves is all part of our second chakra of relation and emotion, as well as external. So this is all internal and external relationships. So relationships are a big subject that covers like all of business, all of finance, all of dating, all of romance, all of marriage, all of family trees and family lines, all of lineage. Like all of this stuff is under the second chakra. So we're still not even very high into our being. I think like what the first chakra is 3 petals and the fourth chakra is four petals. I need to look up on this stuff again. Anyway, so this still represents a very small amount of our being, and we're still in most of what the matrix is, most of what the external world is, all about our earth body and our needs for the earth body and our ability to get those needs through connection with ourselves and others. So this is our second chakra, is connection. Again, money, sex, business, finances, just everything, all kinds of networks and socialization, and these are all connection and emotion and transaction, like all of this stuff. So our third chakra is our personal power. It's our gatekeeper chakra. It's our third solar chakra. It allows the power of the source of power of the universe to come through us, and we access that power by making sure we're resolving and not getting stuck in our identity or in our emotions or in our relationships or in our relation with ourselves or others. This is demonstrating our own personal power. And when we show to ourselves that we have the personal power to not get stuck in our thoughts and feelings and our emotions and our tangles, then we all of a sudden clear ourselves enough to receive this power from the universe. And that's why it's the solar chakra, because we're literally the same power that powers the sun. And I'm not talking about a fusion reactor. I'm talking about the the animus behind it. That same animus that gives life to stars gives life to us through our solar chakra. This is just we're energetic beings. Our physical body's a house for our electrical body, which is more of us, and our third chakra just represents the aspect where we are literally part sun and part earth, and our third chakra is the part that is sun. It's the input into our being from the sun, basically. And like I was saying, we have to get to the point where we've resolved our identity, we've grounded our identity, and we're not worried about our emotions and our thoughts. We're not too attached to little details. We deal with them as they come up, and that allows us to channel in our personal power. And again, I'm taking a fair amount of time and I'm being fairly repetitive because this is something that is not really taught anywhere, that most schools actually purposely teach this wrong so that students will never really have a clear picture of reality, so they can be easily manipulated. Again, the dark forces have pretty much infiltrated all organizations, so anytime a valid school actually starts to get popular, it's going to be corrupted at some point. It's going to be infiltrated and corrupted in some way or in some form eventually. And I've seen this happen, at Buddhist abbeys up in the mountains and intentional communities in the forests, and strict Orthodox people living in a tiny community, and open intentional communities with lots of newcomers. I've seen it everywhere. Every single form of organization becomes corrupted because that's how the corruption works. The dark forces work by being manipulative and devious. Anyway, so our solar chakra, our third chakra, is our ability to not get caught up in too much of this stuff and be able to continually move forward and not be too attached. And that's true personal power. And this is something, again, we are taught power is power to inflict cruelty on other people and the power to have money to do things we want. That's what we're taught that power is. And we're taught that power is electricity to be able to run machinery. And we're taught power is like having a bunch of tanks to be able to force a bunch of people to do what we want them to do and things like that. But in reality, these are externalized uses of power. And so expenditures of power. And so when we expend power, when we use power as a form of dominance or control, we're actually giving it up, and instead of building it up, we're giving it up. And so it creates a vicious cycle for constantly spending our power by trying to gain over other people and manipulate other people and control other things, because we're constantly spending our power, and then we have a craving for more to replace. We feel like someone stole our power because we just gave it away, and we don't realize that we gave it away because we're taught that that's what power is. So we're taught that power is false. We're falsely taught that power is a vicious external cycle of trying to control other people, feeling like then we don't have our personal power anymore because we spent it all trying to control other people, getting mad at those people we tried to control because we feel like they took our energy because we spent our energy trying to control them, and then wanting to steal even more energy from them and wanting to control them even more, creating an even more vicious cycle. And if you can hear a little narcissistic echoing in here, that's basically one of these simple mechanisms that they trap people into being narcissists, is being dependent on being an energy thief kind of thing. So personal power is our ability to free ourselves from those energy tangles, not get caught up in the people who have harmed us, instead come up with better boundaries, avoid these people, don't let them into our lives, don't engage them if they taunt us or attack us, defend ourselves and do the most intelligent thing we can, effective thing we can. But simply the rule of do not engage is like the core principle when we're working with people that want to drag us down to a lower level that they are at. Is non-engagement is the most powerful thing, because the non-engagement is a very clear sign of no consent. And when we are very clear that we are not consenting to engaging with this kind of behavior, it actually comes across and it has a powerful effect on most people. Some people are truly sociopathic and they don't even have any humanity left in them at all anymore, so they don't respond at all to those kinds of things. We need to be aware that there are sociopaths out there as well. Not too many, but there are some out there. Most people, even if they're very cruel or violent or vicious people, tend to respond to these higher energetics. I've had an encounter with a Hell's Angel who was trying to manipulate me and play me, and eventually, because what I was holding my own character, he was compelled to tell me that what he thought about me in English, because I was able to bring him to my level. Instead of giving in to his deceptions or trickeries, I was able to remain in my own presence, and that frustrated him so much that instead of trying to manipulate me, he wanted to make sure that I was actually knowing what he was saying, because I wasn't going into his game, and he was forced to actually try to go into my world to communicate to me. So this is an example of holding our own, being within authentic, genuine presence and personal power. And it's non-threatening. It's very open. It doesn't cause too much problems. People might have emotional reactions to being in our personal power and being in our personal presence, and being curious but not getting sucked into anything. But generally, there's a difference between the emotional reactions around that and people feeling actually threatened by it. So that is all our personal power, our third chakra. And most of us, I'm guessing, are feeling a little bit weak in our third chakra, feeling a little bit deficient, feeling a little bit less than we could be, and feeling like we'd want to have a little bit more self-compassion and motivation and power, and feel less inhibited and less restricted, and more able to do all the things we'd want to do. More ease in alchemy, more ease in transmuting emotion, experiencing and releasing, and genuinely experiencing and dissolving energy tangles. This is all our third chakra. So I'm guessing that most of us are still dealing with having to find more and more effective ways to try to release our emotions, because we're going through a big clearing that's been going on for a long time now, and it's not letting up. We just get these intervals of really intense having to clear our emotions, and then it lets up for a day or two, and then diving back in. That's basically what I've been feeling for, it's been like almost a year now. Like, it's time to burn all this stuff off as fast as possible, kind of a thing. So anyways, this is why I'm spending so much time talking about the third chakra, and why I gave a kind of repetitive, redundant overview of the first and second chakra, because it's all the same thing. We're all working with processing these emotions. And once we get this done, and this is not an achievement that we unlock and then we're there. This is every day we have to do this. Every moment we have to make sure we're still there. And once we get to our personal power, something can piss us off and get us into a reaction, then we have to bring ourselves back up and say, okay, I'm going to ground this out. I'm going to experience it. Okay, is this really that important? Is this relation with myself? Is this frustration really worth sustaining? We have to actually work ourselves out of it and structure ourselves back up into our third chakra. And then we access our heart. So this is the exciting point. When we've done this, then all of a sudden we're up into our fourth chakra, our heart chakra. This is green. This is basically the color of life. This is the animus that is the universe. So our solar chakra is kind of like the power that streams in, the power that drives things and motivates and creates things, and sustains things. And the heart is really the intelligence. It's the richness and fullness of the energy behind the universe. The heart is kind of like the consciousness of the universe. I'm sure we've all heard the metaphor, love is all there is, or the universe is love, or one of the poets having one of these various metaphors. And we're all basically talking about the fact that the fourth chakra, the heart, is consciousness. It's curiosity, it's compassion, it's generosity, it's expansion. The heart is really the center point of our being. It pumps the lifeblood through our body, which oxygenates our body, which feeds our body and cleanses our body. Our heart is really the center point of our animus. And our fourth chakra is a representation of the conscious intelligence of the universe, whatever we want, whatever God or Big Bang or whatever we're using to describe it, that force that initially created the universe, where there was only void before, is represented through our heart, and is highly intelligent. So when we talk about the fact that energy is intelligent and it seems to know how to do things, when we study quantum physics, we can see how energy seems to be considerate and make decisions and considerations and have social networking and pair up and bond up. And we can see energy on a quantum level actually acts more like a social being, a conscious social being, than it does this binary mathematical thing. So energy itself is conscious, as described through quantum physics as well as ancient mystics, and this is all represented through our fourth chakra, our heart. And this is, again, a very clear example of how we can tell the difference between our emotions and our heart. And we're taught that our emotions are our heart, and that's just to confuse us, because, like I've been saying, our heart is this ability to be curious and expand and explore and be statistical and be organic and in the moment and flow and adapt to change and be able to draw in a lot of good information, and might be confused at first by things, but does not sustain confusion. So our emotional body might get confused and hang out in being confused for a long time, and that's just an attachment to being confused, because when we're up and past our personal power into our heart, we don't sustain confusion. We get confused about something, and then we open up and start learning about what we're confused about, and thus we're no longer confused about it anymore. It is only the attachment to being confused, the attachment to not letting go of what's keeping us in confusion, that keeps us in confusion. And again, our emotional body, our second chakra, is going to be what keeps us in confusion, because we're going to be, if we're trying to justify our emotions or validate our emotions, or we're trying to release them but we don't know how, this is again probably going to be a state of confusion and a state of unknowing and uncertainty. And when we are in our hearts, we are never in a state of unknowing or uncertainty. We don't sustain it. We might experience it for a moment, but our heart will not sustain that. If we're all of a sudden sustaining uncertainty and some kind of fear or discomfort around that, that means that we've actually fallen consciously out of our heart chakra, past our gatekeeper, back into our second or our first chakra. And it's okay. We just need to recognize that it's happened and bring ourselves back up into our heart. Use our personal power to overcome our first and second chakra trappings and work our way back up into our heart again. And this is just the moment-to-moment practice that is being consciously present and aware in the moment, actually aware of our being, not just kind of like this kind of hippie saying or this kind of modern fad saying of, oh yeah, I'm awake and I'm present. It actually has a scientific meaning of the alignment and the activation of our chakras as per our psychology, where we are with our psychology. It's not some I had a Kundalini awakening and now I'm awake thing. Again, these are lies that were probably designed by the CIA to create trolls, to try to create people who just go around talking nonsense as if they were spiritual, took drugs once or had a spiritual experience maybe without drugs or whatever, and all of a sudden that one experience that they've been touting as being a highly spiritual person. Practical, tangible, scientific practices that we do every day. It's not a social club. It's great to have fun and be social, but it's also really important to do what this is, this amazing technology, with wanting to feel good and wanting to fit in and wanting to conform and wanting to have social outlet and wanting to have emotional satiation. It's important not to pollute one of the most amazing pieces of technology for self-healing and self-growth and ascension for the sake of emotions. It's just not worth doing that. Okay, so that was our fourth chakra, our ability to continually explore and expand and be curious. And then we move on into our fifth chakra, which is our throat chakra. This is the voice of creation. I've talked lengthy on this subject on my other broadcasts on the subject, so I'll make it slightly shorter. Our voice of creation is our ability to create, and usually when we're in our heart, in our curiosity, in our persistence and expansion, then we're able to create. And if we fall out of our hearts, or if we're just not as much in our heart, we can be kind of partially in different levels in different areas of our chakras. So if we're not enough in our heart, then we might be lacking a little bit of this curious expansion that allows us to create with ease. So our fifth chakra, our voice of creation, allows us to communicate with ease. We find the words, we have clarity, we're not confused, we don't struggle to find the words, we're not unsure of what to say. When we're really in our hearts, we're sure of what to say. We don't need to think about what we need to say. We are present in our hearts, and our hearts are highly intelligent. It's like a highly intelligent aspect of our energy body. And so when we're genuinely activated in our hearts, we don't need to think about, like for now, for example, when I do these live streams, I don't think about what I'm going to say before. I usually will settle on a subject. I'll say this is a burning topic for me right now, or I see a lot of people could benefit from a little more clarity on this topic right now, and I'll go from that, like, this is something that needs a little bit of clarification, and I'll start from there. But I don't actively think of what I'm going to say, because I'm just channeling it through my heart. And again, so this is our fifth chakra, is our voice of creation, our throat chakra, activated generally by our heart and our vision. And sixth chakra is our vision. This is our third eye, our pineal, and this is why I don't blink much when I live stream. It's getting a little hot in here, so my eyes are starting to water up a little bit. This is why I seem like my eyes are slightly unfocused, and I seem like I'm almost staring off into space slightly, because I'm actually looking out through my pineal gland and having visions. So a lot of what I'm saying is coming in through my heart and coming in through my vision. So I'm getting sensations and information coming in through my heart, and I'm having visions coming in through my pineal, and I'm just staying really focused and grounded and centered, not getting distracted by the fact that I'm looking into a camera. That's a little bit distracting, but with some practice, I was able to get to the point where I'm able to stay within my heart and be looking through my pineal with my eyes slightly unfocused during the course of this, and it allows for a fairly seamless, streamlined gifting of information and sharing of information, because I don't really have to stop and pause to think what to say. Anyway, so that is my sixth chakra. This is our ability to see the unseen. I talked about this a lot in the last live stream a couple days ago, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's anytime we're doing like math or science or engineering or artwork or visualization or any of these things, we're using our pineal to see, but we can really be using our pineal all the time. We don't have to only use it when we're doing specialized tasks like that. We can practice being in our pituitary, which is kind of the bottom center of our head. Like that's where we're located. Instead of being more in our forehead or more on the top back of our head, we can be in the bottom center of our head and look up and out through our center eye and slightly unfocus our two eyes. We can just practice doing this all the time. It'll give us a better perspective on ourselves and life all the time. It'll allow us to see more clearly and be less reactive all the time. The more we look through, or the more we are in our pituitary and look through our pineal, the more we're going to experience reality with clarity, and the more we're going to benefit from what we experience in life. So again, that's our sixth chakra. This is our ability, our portal, our third eye, our ability to see. And then we move up into our seventh chakra, which is our our antenna. This is like the one that receives the energy from the universe. Our first chakra grounds into this planet, what is below grounds into this identity here, and our seventh chakra is on the other end. That's our antenna. So like we're picking up the signals from our higher dimensional beings, which are very scientific and very real. There's a lot of different names for them, and there's not a whole lot of consensus around the language that is used, so it sounds a little confusing, and we don't get to see it too much in the third dimensional plane that much, except through our third eye occasionally and through visions and dreams, but very tangibly real. Very, very, very much more real than here. And I know that's just strange to think about, being here now and not having anything to really compare it to except for dreams and movies and stuff like that. But the higher dimensions that we access through our seventh chakra, that we receive through our seventh chakra, are much more real than here and have a much bigger impact on how things happen here than anything else. And thus, when we align ourselves so that our actions and our thoughts and our words here are actually in alignment with us all the way up through our seventh chakra, then we're much more powerful here, because we're actually accessing ourselves on a higher level and making sure that it's in alignment with our being down here, which actually resonates with everything better. Again, we live in a quantum world, and so when we're accessing our higher quantum potential, it's real and it has a real impact on our environment around us. And no, it's not perfect. I mean, like I said, there are some sociopaths that actually fight off all forms of empathy and refuse to engage on any kind of quantum interaction in that way, except for in a very militaristic way. So there's going to be some exceptions, and there's going to be our own limitations, and there's going to be all kinds of exceptions. So anyways, seventh chakra, portal to the other world. This is how we receive information. Most recently, I saw an infographic posted by Marco Lepore, who's really good with this stuff, and that infographic was showing the seventh chakra. It was showing healthy and blockages, the two states, and the seventh chakra is generally blocked by ego attachments, which means that we can get super high into our energetic being. We can be in our creation, we can be in our vision and in our heart and compassionate, and we can then get attached to our ego, attached to what we have created, attached to who we are now, attached to what we have now, attached to our power, attached to our position and our prestige and our accomplishments. We can get so attached to that we get locked out of the higher realms, and we're stuck at our sixth chakra. And we can create and we can vision, but things start to go wrong, and we don't know why things are going wrong all the time, because we feel like we're compassionate, and we feel like we're creating, and we feel like we're seeing with clarity, but we don't know why things are messing up or not aligning right, or we're missing the bigger picture, or things aren't slipping when they shouldn't be. And this is because we've become too attached to what we've created, and has blocked our ability to receive more. So our seventh chakra is all about really being curious. So the heart is about really being curious and compassionate and expanding, but then again, all the way up to our seventh chakra, it's a whole nother level of being in complete surrender of a whole being. If we want to access those higher realms and those greater dimensions, if we want to learn about the real way that the world works behind the scenes, then we need to be letting go of all that we know, and letting go of every attachment that we have, of every achievement that we have, and humbling ourselves to the most extreme degree in submission to this greater realm. We really have to be the 1% and allow the 99% to wash over us, and to allow the 99% to teach us its mysterious ways, and whatever we can glean from that experience, throw ourselves into the ocean, let it wash us around, climb back up on shore, and recount what we learned from the experience. This is kind of how we use our seventh chakra, until the point where we're doing conscious dives and we're using intentional practices where we're going in and doing deep dives into the ocean and retrieving things and exploring. But at first it's just going to seem like exposure, like letting go into the unknown is going to feel like, getting sucked in by the undertow of a wave or something. It's going to be crazy and intense, letting go of everything we know, letting go of who we are, letting go of all our achievements and accomplishments, and saying I am nothing compared to the fact that I want to learn more, and so I willfully surrender all that I know to the fact that I know that there's so much more, and everything that I know is insignificant compared to what I really want to know. And when we do this, we're telling ourselves that we really do want more. And again, most people, this is all about sequence and pillars of support. And as we build up our chakras, they support the next level. If we build up our ability to really ground, and every single day we're grounding, and we're like getting exercise and fresh air, and we're doing our first chakra grounded into the earth meditation every day. And we're really on top of not getting stuck in our ego and our emotions, and we're processing our emotions, and we're not blaming other people. We're making changes within ourselves and our behavior and our actions and our decisions all the time. Then we're actually working up and building a more stable base. And we'll know when we get knocked off, when we feel like we work up to a really high in our life and we're doing really great in life, and all of a sudden things start to slip. This is simply because, generally this is because we've overdeveloped in a higher chakra that requires more lower chakra support to prop it up. So this is, again, we can access our higher chakras to certain degrees, but then we need our base support chakras to be strengthened if we want to access them more reliably, the higher chakras more reliably or more deeply, or with more stability and less wavering. A lot of times we can reach up to the higher realms every once in a while with some special rituals, but then we kind of crash down from there, and we can just kind of do that every once in a while, and we don't have a whole lot of clarity or stability in between. And this means we just have to go through and spend more time with each one of our chakras, really building them up. And this is why I'm so repetitive on the subject. This is why I probably have like 30 or 40 live streams, many of them on YouTube, that are all talking about the chakra system. I generally use different words and different explanations and different mechanisms, but I'm always talking about pretty much the same thing. The Gayatri Mantra with a chakra activation sequence is one of the centralized, most simple, all-inclusive routines that I've come up with that allows me to benefit myself greatly every day without having to go through extensive amounts of study and confusion and this and that. This is a ritual that I've studied over a long period of time and built up over a long period of time, and this ritual that I can do in 20 minutes or so, or 5 minutes or so, depending, it just incorporates all of these different layers of what I've done, and it's so effective that this is what the central point that I teach from, and the psychology behind it, the psychology of the chakras, fits so perfectly into the fact that I'm doing a chakra activation sequence, and then kind of like a central universal study mantra. It's like I'm studying the universe, I'm surrendering myself to the universe, I'm looking for the greater patterns in the universe. The universe is so beautiful, I just want to be in awe of it and study its patterns and learn more and more about it. This is what the Gayatri Mantra is really all about, and this is why it's the one universal mantra all across the world that is renowned for not needing to know its actual true definition while we're saying it for it to have its full effect. We just have to be in that perpetual submission and curiosity to it. So anyways, that is the 7 chakra systems. There's actually many more chakras. If you've ever looked at the chakra system and wondered why they seem kind of out of place, or there's some in between, and that is because, yes, there are many chakras that are missing. There is a 12 chakra and a 14 chakra and many different sets of chakra sequences that describe more and more refined aspects of our being, and we get into more and more higher dimensions of reality. We know more and more about how our mind and our emotions and our body and our quantum energy actually works. Then we can start to fill in with these other chakras. They represent different psychological interpretations of who we are on an energetic realm. And so the 7th chakra is just complete in and of itself. It's the seven spectral breakdowns of visible light can be seen within our being. And so that's a nice core way to look at it without getting too intense. And we can see how, even just the 2nd chakra incorporates a lot of emotion and connection and relation and a lot of different things. So there's actually a lot more chakras that have these individual support and responsibilities for doing some of these things, even though we incorporate them kind of mass into the 7th chakra system. Anyways, so I'm going to be continually talking about this. I really appreciate it if you share this with anybody you think who might benefit from it, because this is we're in a revolution of remembering who we really are and reawakening who we really are, and it's actually a learning process that we have to go through. And I really want these resources to be available. The more of us who are doing this, the more fun it is, because we can support each other in doing it, and because when we're in genuine presence and in our heart, we're not worried about emotions anymore. And I don't know about you, but I spend most of my life worrying about emotions, and I like having emotions like, cruelty and rejection and ridicule and false divide, false separation, and justifications for separation, and all these weird emotional things have just plagued all of life around me. Everything that I've experienced in life in civilized culture has all been about this separation and emotion and distraught and chaos through the 2nd chakra of emotion. So being able to come out of this into the personal power to stabilize ourselves, to not be stuck in that, and to be in our hearts, it creates love and joy. Life is worth living all of a sudden. We wonder why there's so much depression and suicide and angst and just all these troubles, and it's because we've been told to be stuck and wallow in attachment to our suffering in our emotional body, because we're taught to worship our emotional body. We're taught that our 2nd chakra is our highest chakra. We live in an inverted spectrum, that the satanic slave matrix has inverted our chakra system and says that our emotions and our identity are the most important thing, and this is what causes suffering. When we revert the spectral system to the way it should be, with the violet on top as our antenna, then we can see the fact that it's the exact opposite. And it's when we let go of our emotions, because we learn how to resolve them, we've worked our way through all our chakras, all the aspects of truth of our being, everything is real. We have to do all of it, and then we reach the higher realms, and that stuff doesn't bother us so much anymore, and then we're generally happy all the time. We're really sad because there's a lot of pain and suffering going on all the time right now, and so that's really sad. So we're always kind of sad when we activate these higher realms. We're in a perpetual state of slightly sadness around that, but generally we're just more excited and more optimistic and more enthusiastic, because we see what reality really is, and we're living in the greater reality, and instead of feeling like we're stuck and blind and lost and feeling like emotions are all we have and we don't even know what emotions are. That's just a horrible, miserable place to be stuck. And again, like I was saying, that's where I was stuck for most of my life, and so the fact that I've been able to make it out of that into this exploration of the much greater realms and figure out what it takes to be stable in these greater realms, because I had a big experience where I woke up, and I had a number of them, but I had a really big one where I woke up, and then my primary mission from that point onward was, how do I sustain this? How do I keep this going? I've heard that a lot of people have this and then don't have it anymore. I want to keep this going. I want to live this every single day. So I started practicing these rituals. I started diving in. I was not into astrology, and I just dove into astrology and found Alex Miles and started practicing her pretty regularly, all the stuff she was doing. When we really get excited about this stuff and access this stuff and work towards it and build it up as a passion, then we really sustain it, and we can really be learning from it all the time. And this is what self-growth is really all about, is being really excited and passionate and invigorated. If I start to get afraid about something or distance myself from something, I can actually start to feel that energy stagnate, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't really want stagnant energy. I'm gonna go get excited and go deal with that. So it might be something I'm afraid of or something I don't want to deal with, but just noticing that it's becoming a stagnant energy force, and that I have the ability to not allow it to form into stagnant energy. I can go deal with it before it stagnates too much. That's a really empowering, delicious feeling of excitement, of I can take the personal responsibility to solve a problem before it's turned into a problem that I become attached to. And again, this is how we lighten ourselves. This is how we release our emotions and prevent ourselves from being attached to emotions. And again, having emotions is important, giving the recognition, but there's a big difference between reacting and being addicted to and sticking in and being stuck in our emotions and replaying our emotions, and experiencing our emotions. Experiencing our emotions means going into the feeling of the agony or of the expression of the emotion, and then bringing in our conscious self as two separate actions. Part A, relive the emotion, experience whatever the feeling is. Part B, bring in the consciousness of the higher self. Say, I am a witness to what is happening right here. I'm witnessing this suffering. Yes, I'm experiencing this suffering, and I'm witnessing the fact that it has happened. And yes, it is cruel or unjust or whatever it is. And yes, it all is. And I'm right here witnessing this. And this simple part A, part B process is alchemy. This is how we dissolve our emotions. And there's more to it, and certain things are going to be, if we're way more attached to certain things, if they incorporate more attachments to our being, then we're going to need to use a slightly more evolved process of this, but it's still going to be based on the same process of reliving the emotion that we're attached to and bringing in the fact that we're conscious and present. Do you know how powerful this is? EMDR is a mainstream form of therapy, of therapy, EMDR therapy. You can go find a therapist, type in EMDR in the search browser, and you can get someone specialized in doing just this. They don't waste time messing around asking about your history and your life and your past and trying to get to know you and become familiar. You don't have to worry about finding the right therapist to work with who's going to fit with you and comprehend us enough to make progress with us. EMDR is just, okay, go back to where the problem is, and then as you go back there, once you're there, I'm going to do something so that you're going to be present. I'm going to put something in front of your eyes so that your conscious attention is distracted into seeing what's in front of your face while you're reliving the memory. And that is the same alchemical technique that I described as the point A of experience, and then bring down the witness of the experience. And so it's reached mainstream, and I just want us to all know that we can be doing this with ourselves all the time. This is, again, I took, actually, I don't think I mentioned this. I took classes on this stuff when I was 16. My mother was interested in it, and my mother was an assistant for someone who's running some of these programs on how to do emotional clearings on ourselves and do transmutation of energy. And so I've been exposed to this for a long time. I wasn't particularly good at it when I was younger. I was good at accessing my subconscious state. I was really good at self-hypnosis, but not as good with the releasing attachments. When I was 16, I was still, learning and growing about life and hadn't figured out how the world works here. It's kind of a crazy world. But by now, I've been processing and digesting that information for so long that it's become almost second nature. So when I talk about these things, they're all direct experience, and I'm not regurgitating memory. I'm not reciting something I read in a book. I'm not repeating a meme I heard. I'm not, forwarding messages. This is my experience of life. This is what I do every day. I'm thankful to have found work that pays, that is in alignment with what I do, which is helping people. So it allows me to have a more seamless experience, and I can be in the same state of mind of thinking about creating solutions and educating and expanding and working on my own being. I can kind of do this in my day job work as well as in my private time. Obviously, it's not ideal. I'd rather be doing this all the time. But really, this is what allows us to become happy and excited. Like, I go to bed and I'm just so excited every time. Like, when I go to bed, that's like one of my favorite parts of the day, because I just lay down and I give everybody's energy back. So all the people that I've interacted with, or any attention I have on other people throughout whatever happened, and just give it all back, and I can feel myself just like perk up and get all alive from the feeling of releasing all that energy from the day, and just be so thankful for the opportunity to learn from the day. Every single day I spend so much time learning and observing and surrendering what I know now to the greater so that I can learn more about it, that every single day I end up learning so much and having so many different experiences. Even if I do nothing, even if it was mundane and it sucked and it was uncomfortable and painful that day, I'm still really thankful, because I always learn a bunch of stuff, because I'm really curious about stuff all the time. I'm always taking notes in my head, at least, and comparing statistics and drawing some new information about what's happening, even if it's the same thing over and over again. There's always some kind of variation. And so, going to bed is one of the happiest experiences for me. I just absolutely love it. I stretch out. I do a couple rituals. I say, I ask for all of my free will to return to me, because we're born into a slave matrix, and so we don't really have a lot of our free will when we're born. It's immediately taken away from us before we're born and when we're born and through the most of our lives. And so asking for it back is a really powerful thing. I know it sounds kind of stupid or pointless or superficial or doesn't have weight behind it, but when we ask for something, especially during our wake, right before we wake, right as we're waking up and right before we go to bed, when we ask for something and are really genuine and really potent with the asking, we're actually asking ourselves to do this in our subconscious. And so it's not so much like we're blindly asking God or the universe or faith or whatever blindly to do it for us. We're actually programming our subconscious with our conscious. We're saying, okay, I want a solution to this problem. Subconscious, go. I'm checking out of my conscious. I'm going to sleep now. Subconscious, do your thing. This is all. And when we do this, like if we can do this like every morning or every night or both, even if we can do it just every morning or just every night, if one of them works better for us, it's a really powerful thing to be communicating with our subconscious like this. So again, when I go to bed, super excited, super happy. That feeling of getting in and like cuddling with a loved one. Like I get that feeling just when I go to bed. I just get that feeling of like, oh, it feels so good to lay down and relax, and my body's all tingling and warm, and I can feel the sensation of my skin, and I just get that kind of feeling. Like I almost, having these awakenings have made me have a much lesser craving to be with other people, because I have so much of that similar experience without being around other people. It's a really wonderful experience. It's a freeing experience to be able to enjoy ourselves more and not be quite as dependent on other people. We are co-creative beings. We are dependent on each other. I'm not going to say that we're isolationists, but it is really nice and freeing to know that we do not have to depend on connecting with other people all the time, that we can learn how to really enjoy ourselves. So going to sleep is really nice. I know this is one of the big transformative things, because generally if we're not quite there yet, or we haven't quite built stability into our heart chakra or fourth chakra, then things like going to bed haven't become easy yet, or haven't become enjoyable yet. We haven't gotten to the point where we've built up the full stability, where maybe when we're in our hearts 25 or 35 or 50% of the day or 80% of the day, but then sleep can be a tough one, because that's when we have to review ourselves. That's when most people want to drink themselves to sleep, or smoke themselves to sleep, or whatever themselves to sleep, have sex until we fall asleep. So we don't have to deal with the uncomfortable feelings of review throughout the day, and being kind of more in a vulnerable state with our energy tangles. And when we really get more comfortable with resolving these energy tangles, or being okay with them, or processing them, or doing whatever, coming up with rituals, then we feel at ease when we go to bed, because we're more in our hearts, and our hearts is actually compelling us to process these difficult emotions. Our heart is saying, come on, guy, you're going to be so much happier if you take care of this. I know it sucks and you don't want to do it, but just look, you're going to sleep so well and you're going to feel so good. And so our heart kind of compels us to take on more responsibilities, because we know it's better for us. We know we're going to feel better, and when we get used to feeling better, we don't want to go back into the wallowing in emotion anymore. We don't want to get stuck in painful emotions anymore. That just sucks. We want to get better at being more stable, and going to sleep is a great example of this. Waking up is the other great one. Oftentimes when we wake up, we're told we have to do things we don't want to do, go to a day job, take care of responsibilities we're not ready for, all these kinds of things. And so waking up can be kind of a painful thing, and people might need, we might not be at our best in the morning, or a lot of people use coffee to help them wake up, which is basically I'm not saying anything bad about drinking coffee. I'm just saying that caffeine in a refined form and a regular use form is generally a Nazi experiment to compel people to do things they don't want to do, or to push people past what they would normally do without being exposed to that drug. So again, there's nothing really wrong with caffeine. It's just in its highly ritualized daily use form, it has been used en masse to create a workforce that will do things they don't really want to do, whereas human nature will generally not do things over and over again. If it doesn't really want to do them, it'll try to find other options. But caffeine, these Nazi scientists, they figured out that caffeine will allow people to do things they don't really want to do. And so this is a great example of how in the morning, when we're not in our hearts, we're generally wanting something to cover up the fact that we still have all those energy tangles. Either we didn't resolve them before we went to bed, because we try to zonk ourselves out with heavy eating or drinking or smoking or sex or whatever, so we fall asleep, and then so we wake up and it's all rushing back at us, and we're like, fuck, I didn't deal with it last night, it's still here. Or we did deal with it a lot when we went to bed, and then we wake up and all we've been in our subconscious and our unconscious swimming around, and so we're waking up and then surfacing with all the stuff that we've then accumulated from exploration that's there, and then all knowing that we have to process this again when we wake up. So again, when we actually are doing this processing work, and when we're doing the chakra alignment, this awareness of our own psychology and our own energy being work all the time, every day, self-review, self-accountability, holding boundaries, creating new boundaries with ourselves and other people, then we're doing this all the time, and it's not this big checkpoint at night and when we wake up. There's not this big scary drop at night, and there's not this big frustrating pain confronting thing in the morning. These kind of evaporate, or we deal with them individually. When I'm in periods of time in my life when I'm dealing with a lot of challenge, going to sleep is often easy because I have that ritual down, but sometimes waking up, there's so much intensity to deal with in the process of getting a day going that it can be a little difficult to wake up and not as pleasant. So and it will mean the difference between me programming my subconscious as soon as I wake up when I'm really flowing and have a lot of ease in my life. When I wake up, I start programming my subconscious the first thing. So I don't think about things. I don't consider things. I don't review things. When I first wake up, I tell myself, I say, I want to solve this problem. I want to create this. I want to do this. This is what is important to me today. And I'll feed my subconscious something simple for a couple minutes. And it'll just be like, wow, that this communication that I have with this person that happens fairly regularly is not working. I want to solve this. I want to resolve this so that it works better. And just really tell myself this for a good minute and a half or 2 minutes when I'm first waking up. It has a very profound and subtle impact. It's profound in that it generally seems to work a high percentage of the time, and it's subtle because there's no accountability for why it works other than we're feeding it to our subconscious, and our subconscious is more of us than our conscious for the most part until we've done a lot of this practice. I would say for sure me and everyone I've met pretty much is more of our being is in our subconscious, not consciously explored yet, than is been explored yet. And again, so waking up can be this ability to program our subconscious. I've confronted my boss without knowing what I was going to say, who's a master psychologist of 20 plus years, who is bent on manipulating everybody around him. And I just said, you know what, I need to be able to speak my truth to this guy because he's, stepping on my toes and not allowing me to do my work properly and blaming me for mistakes that he's forcing me to make. And I need to solve this. If I'm going to work at this job, I need to solve this. And so I just told myself, I actually started the night before. I was so emotionally weighed down by it. Before I went to bed, I did this, and I just said, I need a solution to this. I don't know what it's going to be. I need it. And in the morning, I did it again. I need a solution to this. I don't know what it's going to be. I need a solution, and just let go of it. And then I went to work, and I, called for a meeting with him, and I just was able to say everything that I needed to say, and was able to hold space for him to come up with every single accusation he could make against me. And it just worked out fine because I was in my genuine presence. I had programmed my subconscious, and my subconscious came up with the mechanism. And it sounds like a little bit of blind faith, but this is actually a much higher form of science. And when we start to study how energy works, how the universe actually works, what these energetic lines and radiation and spectrum actually are, then we can see how this stuff actually works scientifically. Anyways, just wanted to go over the fact that when we're doing this alignment work all the time, then it actually has a profound impact. And two of those profound areas of our life is when we go to bed and when we wake up, which are often typically challenging for a lot of people, and they are supposed to be exciting and easy. All right, that was the 7 chakra system and the psychology of our energy body. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day.